Looking forward to having the first opportunity to visit with you all as Executive Director. Humbled to continue to be here, and grateful for Bob and his leadership and mentorship. I do not have any bad dad jokes. I will not be sharing any, I'm sorry. I may have to bring one back every once in a while, but today, if you came for that, you can go ahead and maybe go for a snack, go for some cookies. But in the future, I may incorporate that. But grateful for you all to be here and to see everybody. We're going to talk through some different things. The format's going to be slightly different than you're used to. There were some questions for people to say, are we still having these meetings? And yes, we will continue to have them. In June, we did not have it because I was out of state. So we are going to continue with the same structure, same routine. So as we get started, want to do things a little bit differently. I'd like to ask David Newton to lead us in prayer right now. So, David?
Thank you. It's good to be back. My body is here, but my mind is telling me it is 4 o'clock in the morning right now. So join with me as we go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, the psalmist reminds us that you have searched us and you know us right well. In fact, he contends that you know us, you know when we sit down and when we rise up, and you even know our thoughts from afar. You taught us that if we look behind us, you're there, and if we look ahead of us, you're there too. And whether we're coming or going, your presence reassures us. And Lord, that's a good thing for us to think of today as we gather. We thank you that you're beyond the bounds of time and space and are present at every time and every place, and that includes where we are right now. And so as we gather as a community, help us to be mindful of our friends and neighbors. We're thankful that we live and work in a community like this where our lives are enriched by those around us. We're grateful that, not by chance, but by your providence, each of us has been led along an individual path in life, resulting in this unique and special gathering today. So as we interact with one another today and in the days to come, help us to grow more and more in appreciation for one another. Encourage us to learn each other's stories, to come to understand the hearts and minds of one another, and may our community grow more and more into that peaceable kingdom that would be pleasing to you. And as we continue in our time together today, help us especially to be aware that you are present among us as well. Guide us in these moments. Lord, we are grateful for what you have been doing along the way for this time of transition, and we're thankful to you for Ryan and ask that your hand would be on him as he leads us today and in the days to come. And so now as we gather for a time of hearing and discussing, as ideas are introduced and discussed, help us to employ not just words to communicate, but help us to apply our hearts and our minds to the process as well. So guide us in all that is said and all that is done during this hour. And this we pray in our Lord's name. Amen.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Would like to start off slightly differently. Keep moving along. There we go. So I wanted to take a moment to welcome and introduce Anna Grace Doolittle, and I've asked her to come up and just speak a little bit briefly about her, and we're excited to have her here. She stepped into the administrator role as I've moved up to executive director role. So, welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. It's good to be here. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So my name's Anna Grace Doolittle. I have taken the position of Ryan, so I'm over all the licensed areas. So healthcare, rehab, Cedars, and Evergreen Place. And I've been here about 2 months, and I've really enjoyed my first 2 months and diving in deep to figure out what we can do to improve Rolling Green and where we're at now and how we can continue to grow. So a little bit about me. I recently moved from Franklin, Tennessee. I was there for about a year at another LCS community, the Heritage of Brentwood, which is another CCRC, just like Rolling Green. It's comprised of everything from independent living down to skilled care, the same way Rolling Green is. So I was there for a year as an associate administrator, and before that I was in Savannah. I lived in Savannah for about 6 years. I got my bachelor's in public health and my master's in health administration from Georgia Southern University. I did not attend school in Statesboro, if anybody's familiar with Georgia Southern. I went to school in Savannah. I originally applied to Armstrong State University, if anyone is familiar with Savannah. And I was a part of the merge to Georgia Southern. So I lived there for about 6 years. During that time, I worked retail, I worked in senior living, I worked at Skidaway Island United Methodist Church as a nursery intern and was very busy. I'm married. I've been married for 1.5 years to my husband, Ben. We're high school sweethearts, so we've been together for about 10 years. We started dating when I was in the 9th grade, so I was 14 and didn't really expect our relationship to continue to be where we're at today. But we've been married for 1.5 years. He is a special education teacher. He just accepted a position with middle grade special ed at Bryson Middle School in Simpsonville. So he coaches football and baseball, so we're very busy. I have no children. I like to tell people that. I have no children and I have no pets, but we plan to get a dog in the spring. Yeah, just dog. I've learned that Greenville's very pet friendly, so we're going to have to get an animal to kind of fit in. I grew up in a very small town in Georgia, a rural town of the county had about 20,000 people in it, so it was very small, called Sandersville. Went to school there. My parents are still there. Ben's parents are still there. And I knew that I wanted to work within healthcare, but wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. My mom is a geriatric psych nurse, and I knew that I did not want to do the clinical aspect, but how to make a difference within the lives of others. So I decided to pursue the operations route and the management route. And senior living was always something in the back of my head. I started my master's, and I remember having someone from a community in Savannah come to speak, another LCS community, and she spoke very fondly of LCS and spoke of what the passion's like and what the day-to-day is like within senior living, and that stuck out to me. So listened to her speak and decided this is what's for me. My grandmother had Alzheimer's from the time I was 5 to the time I was about 13, and my granddad decided during that time he was not going to put her into a facility. And I remember that was a hard decision for him, but we grew up about I grew up a mile away from her, so I was a part of her every day through her disease transition and was a caregiver at a very early age. I remember sitting and doing coloring books and playing with Barbies, and we were on the same level at times, and that was a very important piece of my childhood. So a very important piece as to why I chose senior living and try to make a difference within those licensed areas and take back that stigma that's associated with the nursing home term per se. So that's a little bit about me, and that's why I chose senior living and to be here, and I'm very privileged to be at Rolling Green, and I feel like it's been a warm welcome, and I appreciate Ryan's leadership and the transition that we've had, and look forward to working with each of you and continue to grow here. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna Grace. Make sure you all can hear me okay. We have an extension here. We're extremely grateful to have Anna Grace here with us. The community she worked at in Brentwood, Tennessee is a really good place. She comes with a lot of great experience. She's hit the ground running. She's learning a lot. She's asking great questions. She was here at 6 a.m. She left 6 a.m. on, I think it was Wednesday, to visit with third shift, and she came with cookies. I don't know if anybody saw her with extra cookies yesterday. So, but she really has, embraced being on the front lines and getting to know folks and helping people. So, we're grateful to have her here. I told her I'd just come in for a few minutes, and next month we would have her spend a little bit more time and talking a little bit further. So, I'm going to continue working down the agenda here. We're going to do a couple of things different at first, and then I'll spend some more time with you all. I want to see if Ruth could come up and speak a little bit. Yesterday at the association meeting I had a chance to sit in on, there were some questions around Pathfinders. What are they? I think folks know that Nissan makes an SUV called a Pathfinder, but we have a Pathfinder here, a Pathfinder program, so I thought it'd be good for her to speak for just a minute or two about what Pathfinders, who they are, how they are here, and how we can help embrace them. So, Ruth?
Thank you. I found my way here. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday, which is just one day away from Friday, and tomorrow is payday. So we're just rolling into the weekend, all happy. How many of you grew up in a small town? Oh, wow. Like, I'm saying around 50,000 or less.
Oh, that's not small.
250. Oh, my goodness.
He's where I'm from.
You would have known him.
I could have.
Could have been your neighbor. Well, the reason I say this, I grew up, a lot of you know this, that I was a pastor's kid, and we lived in the parsonage next door to the church. So that was like living in its own small town, because everybody that went to that church felt compelled to share with my parents all the insights that they would get in observation of what we used to do. And sometime you can, I'm actually working on a book, believe it or not, but I promised my mom I won't publish it until after she passes, because she's afraid I'm going to make fun of her, and I'm not going to make fun of her, but I have some great stories. When you have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, there's things that happen. So anyway, the reason I brought that up was one time there was this small town, and somebody called in to the police department and said there was a suspicious person in the bank. It had one bank on Main Street. And it was Saturday and the bank was closed. So, of course, you know, and I lived in Marshall, Texas for a while, so I can tell you this is big news for small towns. So they got all of the policemen that they could find. They called in for reinforcements. It was a farming community, and so there were actually farmers who brought shovels and hoes and guns and things like that. And they got a loudspeaker, and they tried to actually talk the gentleman out of the bank. They tried that for about 2 hours, and that whole time he never moved a muscle. So they got their heads together and decided, ooh, well, I guess we're going to have to just go ahead and storm the doors and take this guy. Hopefully it won't end up in tragedy. So they did. They stormed the doors, and when they got in there, they discovered a life-size cardboard cutout of a man who was being used for advertising. Now, the reason I tell you that story is because you all know, you've lived here long enough, that stories go around here, don't they? I mean, in fact, if somebody tells you a story, it's probably believed even more than the person who's actually responsible for it telling you. They're like, no, I'm telling you this. And so there's been some conversations about what are pathfinders. Pathfinders are people that are on our wait list. Okay? And when we get ready to roll into phase 2 of the expansion, and I'm not announcing anything, Ryan will announce that, and you'll get it first before Pathfinders do. They will be the ones that we go to first to convert into priority sales. We currently have 84 people on the wait list. We're full. And so one of the ways that we keep them engaged is to allow them access to you guys, because you are the best salespeople there are. And so they have the ability to do some dining, some activities, and some wellness. However, they will never take the place of you. So, like, if you have a bus event and you're going to sign up for it, and on there is a waitlist person, that waitlist person knows that they get bumped off. I mean, because they don't live here yet. They wish they could, but they don't. So that's what a Pathfinder is. And why did we decide to do it this way? Well, that's a deep subject. It's because we have to carefully manage our money here, right? We're a nonprofit. I have a budget every year. I'm very thankful I haven't had to go over my budget, which is Skip here. Skip, are you going to share with them about your budget?
Crickets.
I know. I like to tease Pawpaw, so that's why I said that. Anyway, so we have to do certain things to try to keep people engaged and connected with us, just like we did with you. Okay? So it's all part of what we put in the budget, and it's part of the marketing strategies that we set at the beginning of the year for the next year. And it's all carefully managed. It's very strategic. If you want more detail about our print, media, direct mail, digital events, and resident referrals, you can come see me one-on-one. Most of you probably don't really care that much about it. But that's how that came to be. The Pathfinders are our wait list group right now. And the other thing that Ryan asked me to talk about was, and I'm going to climb in here before I talk about it, because I'm so tired of this, the dog park.
I think Skip's going to talk about that, actually. You can talk, too. Go ahead.
Oh, he's going to do the unleash the leash.
Ruth, I can back it up.
Yeah, he can back it up. Go ahead. You're on a roll. Go ahead. You're good.
Keep rolling. You
Keep rolling.
Okay.
Come out of your budget anyway.
It's not coming out of my budget. All right, so unleash the leash. We designated the area over across from the F building, the flat area. Those of you might have seen some of the signs. You're going to come on up. And you saw those signs and you're like, what is this? Unleash the leash. So this is a good reason why you should read Marketing Mania when it comes out, because a couple of months ago I talked about this. It just took us a long time to get the signs up. But anyway, the dog park is awesome, especially for people who need their dog to socialize. They maybe are not mobile enough to walk dogs anymore, or you're a little bitty dog. The dog park's awesome. Glad about that. We have some people here at Rolling Green, primarily in the patio homes, but who have large dogs. And large dogs in the dog park don't give them the kind of exercise that they really need. And so temporarily, because that's where we're going to build in phase 2. Hopefully.
We won't, yeah.
So temporarily, that's going to be our Unleash the Leash dog area. That means if you see somebody out there and their dog is running around, that's fine, okay? They have the list of rules that they have to adhere to, and like all the other things, if they can't support it, and one of them is make sure your dog can come to you when you call your dog, which would not be my little miniature schnauzer. Poppy would look at me and go, I don't think so, and she'd keep barreling down the road. Then you can use that area for your larger dogs to roam and to run and so forth. Any questions over the last 2 things I just talked about, Pathfinders and the Unleash the Leash?
Thank you, Ruth.
Okay, yes.
How does it help your budget to have these Pathfinders?
Because I don't have to spend the money for specific events. So each year I have to budget how many different events I'm going to do. And depending on the event, it gets a certain amount of money placed toward it. So by doing it this way, they can have access and it doesn't cost Rolling Green as much money. So that's why. That's a great question. Thank you, Karen.
So really, that's the reason, I guess, for the change is it helps the budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I did hear from a lot of you that you were upset last year when I took away the $100 a month off your bill referral program. So we're full. We'll look at that again and see if that's something that we can put back in place for 2024. We just started talking about that. But I want to finish up with this. So I grew up with Aunt Ruth and Uncle Billy. Do you know who that is? You don't know who Aunt Ruth and Uncle Billy are? Billy Graham, thank you. And Ruth Graham. I didn't realize they were famous. We just go to their house in North Carolina, and they were Aunt Ruth and Uncle Billy. But I remember one time I went to a woman's meeting that she was hosting, and I loved this question and response. Somebody raised their hand and said, "Ruth, do you and Billy ever argue or disagree?" First of all, she almost laughed off the stage with that question, but then she said, "Listen, if we agreed on everything, one of us would not be necessary." Isn't that a great observation? So when we start to get frustrated about living in community, we got to remember that together we are better. And we may not always understand or agree, but that's why you just need to come and ask us right out. If you have questions about Pathfinders, about marketing strategies, about the budget for marketing, about the events, anything I'm doing, just pick up the phone, call me, and we'll set up a time where we can meet. Okay?
Thank you, Ruth.
Thanks.
Skip, I'm going to give you the opportunity. Did you want to say anything else?
As far as I can curtsy.
The skirt's tight, Rick.
Okay, that's what we're going with.
The skirt's tight.
Can you hear me?
Nope.
Not working. All right, I'll speak loud now. I apologize. I had to step out for a minute with Anna Grace. Another opportunity, but that's all right. Is there any questions or anything that you didn't understand that Ruth touched on, even though I didn't hear what all she said? But just give me an opportunity to ask you a question about that if you've got it.
The Unleash the Leash, right?
Unleash the leash.
And that's the space. There's a sign up there, and
Yeah.
that's
There
basically...
are 3 signs that sort of give you the rules, and then there's one sign that's on the left-hand side, going to Summerside, that says no dogs beyond this point, in red letters. So
Do you
it gives
have
you
the
sort of
poop
defines the
stations
area.
up yet?
Pardon?
Do you have the poop stations up yet?
We just got those in.
Okay.
So those will be going up.
So they will be required
Yeah.
to clean it.
So just put some in your pocket when you go.
Thank you. So this is a little bit of a curveball in the meeting because I wanted to ensure that a couple of those items from yesterday were discussed. So, question, go ahead.
Along Hoaxsmith Road, around this leash to leash, a lot of the trees look like they're dying. They don't have leaves on. What's going on there?
Those are ornamental, Japanese ornamental trees. Okay. Those are okay, can't hear me. I'm sorry, that mic's not working. Okay. Those are ornamental Japanese cherry trees, and they are aging out. They have been here since, I would assume, Rolling Green was built back in the late 80s.
Yes.
So we're going to have to look at something to do with those. And that area is also going to be impacted as we look into the expansion and what we're doing in that. So we're not going to address those issues now. We'll wait as we get further along and they more formally decide what they want to do in those areas and how that's going to be laid out. And then we'll address those at that time. Now we are fertilizing them, deep root fertilizing and doing things like that to try to maintain them. They have come back a little bit, but unfortunately, they're at the end of life.
Thank you. Thank you, Skip. Again, I wanted to curveball a little bit of a pivot, make sure that a couple of those items were discussed before we kept moving along. So thank you, Ruth. I kind of sprung that on her earlier, and thank you, Skip. So we can keep moving along on the slideshow here. Wanted to, I missed one section there, but before we jump into a couple of these items, I want to talk about the hot topic and kind of lead with that around our prayer chapel. And I've been meeting this week with a handful of residents and also visited yesterday at the Resident Association. with folks that were here to talk about the letter, the departure of Jane Stein, and where we're headed with the chapel project. Wanted to first off, raise my hand and accept responsibility. The letter that Jane had sent out, I did approve that. That went out to 600 plus residents. And in hindsight, I should have asked for simplification of her letter. Some of the feedback that she had given was personal in some nature, and I felt that could have been simplified. My initial thoughts, and knowing where Jane's heart is coming from, and having a conversation with before, I knew where she was coming from, and I did want her to have the ability to let folks know why she was leaving. But in hindsight, and seeing that put in writing and distributed to folks, it should have been simplified just to say, for certain personal reasons, she's decided to leave. Some folks have felt that I've talked to have felt that she was trying to get back at the organization, and I don't believe that to be true by any stretch. She has been a valued part of our team for 3.5 years, done some really good work, established some great relationships with folks. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of listening, a lot of talking to folks and understanding some of their perspectives as we move forward. It's a mistake that I had made, and I wanted to make sure folks knew that I do take responsibility as I'm stepping into my role in having a letter put out to 600 folks. Things will be different moving forward when those correspondence do occur. As we move forward with the project, I want to make sure folks know that we've never had an intent to do anything illegal. We are a faith-based organization that's established on Christian ideals. We are welcoming to all. We've never said we want to break fair housing administration guidelines, and we will continue to educate on what fair housing guidelines are to ensure that we do meet those regulations when this project does get to conclusion. So there still is a lot of work to be done, a lot of clarification to be done as we move forward in the next few days, weeks, and months. But I wanted to make sure folks knew of that, and folks knew that when there's been concerns, I have committed, I've gotten in touch with pretty much everyone. I think there's still a few I have to get in touch with, but set up some meetings to understand. I'm doing a lot of listening, doing a lot of understanding, and hopefully trying to create some context for folks to know where we are headed. I'm also working very closely with Chaplain David as we move forward. He's a critical part, critical piece of our community, and he's going to play a critical part as we move forward with this potential project. So I wanted to lead off with that and hope that we don't spend the entire time around that, but I did want to see if there were any questions or other feedback before we continue moving on with the discussion. If folks don't feel comfortable, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Lindsay, and we can sit down one-on-one. But is there any other thoughts or questions as we move forward with the agenda? Yes?
Thank you. My name is Ray. I'm not here very often, but I'm happy to be here today. I also noticed that we opened today with a season of prayer, a time of prayer, a thing called prayer, P-R-A-Y-E-R. That was very uplifting, Chaplain. That was a very uplifting and inspirational prayer that you led us all in. And in my personal prayer understanding, this person may have a prayer life that inspires me, but I can choose to agree with this prayer or pray with him or pray outside of that prayer point. I don't have to have him stop praying. And I want to just register the fact that I'm a person of prayer, and I welcome fellowship with any of you who think differently. But I'm hopeful in this time we're in right now that we can work together and find acceptable, agreeable terms. And we don't have to define every word before us, but I'm grateful for the opportunity and the country that gives us freedom to pray as we wish.
Thank you, Ray. Anybody else that would like to say anything or have any other questions. Like I said, I will be available one-on-one if folks wanted to sit down. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of learning. I accept responsibility, learning a lot. I mentioned in the association, I went from working with families and staff and nurses to then, learning about a lot of different things between projects and stormwater. There's a lot of things that I have to learn in the coming weeks as we move forward. And grateful to be here and looking forward to helping to come up with solutions for all of these types of items. So, yes?
I'm guessing that if an attorney read the fair housing law and tried to apply it to our situation, it would not be cut and dried in black and white. Am I right in guessing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's, the question was, she indicated guessing within, if an attorney were to look at the fair housing laws, there's not necessarily black and white. There's a lot of gray in the way that is set out. I do agree, and there's a lot more that we are continuing to look at internally and having those discussions as we move forward. It can be gray, and we want to again make sure that we stand true to who we are as a faith-based organization, established in Christian ideals and welcoming to all. So, all right, let's see if we can continue to move forward. And I'm sorry, we need to figure out different plans so I don't lean over the whole time. But wanted to make sure folks knew, as I'm stepping into this role, I've been asking, what do you want to hear at this meeting? And if you don't, if you have some other feedback on what you want to hear from me, I'm open to receiving that as well. Some of the feedback that I've received has been around how we're doing as a community. So in some cases, okay. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I don't work for Verizon, but when I say that, it brings back the Verizon guy. So how are we doing as an organization? We are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. We do have an annual budget that runs from January to December. And each month we do have an accounting of how we're doing with revenues and expenses and establishing our net operating income. So we have done quite well, and I think Ruth left, but the work that the team has been doing on the independent living side has been amazing since we're starting to recover from COVID. Filling so many apartments has really helped us to where we're at today. So we did, I wanted to talk to you about through May, we've seen a recovery on the independent living side. Ruth had mentioned we have one apartment that's for sale right now, which is phenomenal. In some stretches we had 30, 40, 50 open apartments. So to be at a place today where we just have one that's for sale, I understand it's a Hickory model. If you all want to help us find that one person, is just amazing. So the independent living part of our community where you folks live we continue to see that folks see this as a great place to live. So they are exceeding their occupancy goals. Within the licensed areas in assisted living, we are also exceeding our budgeted goals. And within memory care, we're about 3 under our goal as far as residents there. Within the health center, I believe today's census we're at 55. We have a lot of coming and going out of 70. So that has been the one space that we have not been able to meet our goals in the health center. Anna Grace coming in, she brings a lot of good perspective and experience from Nashville. We've experienced a lot of folks pass away so far this year within the health center that's contributed to that. I think there's been north of 30 residents just within the health center, which is a lot through the first half of the year. But we do continue to see really good traction, really good outcomes, and great quality of care that's provided there. So overall, we continue to, the organization is continuing to do well. On the independent living side, we're exceeding our goals. Within assisted living, we're a little bit above. Within memory care, we're a little bit below. And within the health center, we're slightly under. But we do have a commitment to continuing to focus on bringing more people here. We feel that if there's an open bed, that could be viewed as a miss in our mission. And we feel that people are better because they are here and they've received the support that we can provide. So on the revenues and expenses side, I want to make sure you know June we just finished and we're putting the finishing touches on it. But I wanted to let you know as far as May. So year to date through May, we actually have been able to, our budget or for revenue through May has been $9,813,996. We've actually exceeded our revenue projections, like I mentioned, for independent living. So we've actually been able to exceed that amount. On the expense side, we've also been able to continue to keep our costs down as far as that. So our actuals has been $8,487,040. If you look at those two different numbers, we've been able to have so far a net operating income of $1,069,703. And we've been able to exceed our budgeted goal. That number is actually above, which is $149,292. So I know I threw a lot of numbers at you just to make sure you're aware. Our revenues have been solid, our expenses have been a little bit under, and so we've so far through the first 5 months have been able to achieve an actual goal of $1 million of net operating income. That's about $149,000 above what we had planned for. As you're aware, with us being a nonprofit, anything that we make in excess of our revenues and expenses is put back into the organization. So I just wanted to give you a feel for where we're at as far as expenses. We can look at simplifying this discussion in the future. I know that the June numbers were going to come in slightly under what we had planned for. We did have some expenses that in the maintenance staff that caused us to go up some projects that were unexpected. But we are continuing to have very solid performance and meet our budget NOI goal. This is the first time we could say we've met some of these goals for a few years, given the impact of COVID. With COVID, we did receive from some government assistance. You could say that we met our goals with that assistance, but no longer having that assistance, we've been able to meet and exceed the goals of the organization. So I think that's a good thing, and I want to make sure I shared where we're at briefly as far as finances and net operating income. I think I've also kind of covered some of our occupancy, so we can keep moving along. If we can go down to resident services versus community life, can you go to the next slide and we'll come back over? I wanted to see if we could clarify. There's some terminology that I think at times folks are not sure what means what. So we have two different areas that kind of feel and it can be confused at times with each other. We have the resident health services team, and we also have the community life team. So I think folks hopefully can read that. If not, our minutes will eventually be posted. On the resident health services team, that's really the folks in the clinic, and the resident health services director would be Shannon Littig. I think folks know Shannon Littig. So within Shannon's team, she works with transportation, the clinic, home care, drivers and nurses and home care workers. By home care, we're talking about folks that are coming out to maybe the patio homes or the apartments and providing home care assistance. So it's not home health, that's another area where some folks get confused, but home care. So those are, sometimes we use the word sitter. I'm not a huge fan of that word, but they're companions that come to your apartment, may help you get up in the morning, go to bed at night, do a few little things with activities of daily living. So that is the resident health services team. Amy's team, which has been doing an amazing job of providing opportunities for connection and community, is the terminology community life. So I'm hopeful to try to help her with some of the confusion and some of you all. So on that team you have the independent living community life folks. Sophia was here but she stepped out. Amy. You also have Rose and their team. We have a new lady that's coming in, hopefully, Constance. They've had a little bit of a hiccup with getting her in, but hopefully she'll be here. There are also drivers that work with the community life team. We also have volunteers, and then also the activity team in the licensed areas. Within each of the nursing home, assisted living, rehab, and memory care, we have a person on the community life team as well. They do an amazing job between Alicia, Christy, Michelle, Heather. Denise, who you all know as well, she at times, as a part-time person. Pat, right? Pat is still, yeah. They do an amazing job. I've been blown away with how Amy has moved from her role in the licensed area team to working on the independent living side, and how she's been able to create opportunities for you all to engage and be a part of life and continue to thrive. So I wanted to make sure we had that clarification. Does anybody have any questions about the resident health or the community life teams, and does that visual help a little bit? Let's keep moving along. Come back. Some quick reminders, and then I want to open up for some questions. The package room. Do folks know where the package room is that I'm talking about? The package room sits behind the concierge desk and the commons. There's a room there that has 2 doors. Amazon has created a whole, I think it's still Amazon Prime Day, if folks haven't gotten their deals yet. Amazon has changed the way that people receive retail packages and retail products. I heard that was $1 billion yesterday that was spent on Amazon. So we get a lot of packages in. A lot of times Amazon will tell you within minutes when your package is delivered. We've had folks come down, look for their package, and walk into the package room. There's a lot of boxes there. We don't want you to fall, trip, be injured. It's cluttered. So we ask that you come down and speak with the concierge. That space, we don't want folks to be coming in and out of on their own. We've had issues as well with packages showing up missing. We want to make sure people get the right packages. So our team is committed to helping deliver those packages. If you get a notification from Amazon, you can come down and see the concierge folks to help you find it. Sometimes they don't always, bring it to the right place. As you know, we have the village center and we also have the commons. But please help us with not going back into that space on your own, helping yourself to it. We don't want to be in a place where we lock it 24/7. I don't believe that's who we are in community. But we just want to make sure that nobody gets injured. Lindsay, is there anything else around that? I know she was helping with that reminder.
Darlene does deliver packages between 3 and 4 every day, so you're welcome to come to the concierge and see if your package has been delivered, if you need it sooner than that. But Monday through Friday, from 3 to 4, packages are delivered to the apartments.
So Monday through Friday from 3 to 4, we have Darlene, who actually works here at the Village Center, goes up to the front and helps deliver those packages. What if it comes on the weekend? What do we do?
Weekends, just staff, if they're around and available, sometimes they'll go out, but not always. If you have a notification come through that you've gotten something over the weekend, you're more than welcome to come, and the concierge will help get that for you.
What if the resident's not at home and somebody brings it back?
So, good question.
Yeah.
So, do you want to...
Question is, what if the resident's not at home? How do we deliver that package?
So, if the resident is not home, usually the packages are delivered to the apartment doors. Usually there's not a knock for the package delivery. If, for instance, some of the vitamins and things like that might come through the mail, we don't typically like to just drop those at the door. We do have, is it Fowler's or Flowers Pharmacy?
I think it's Fowler's. I think so, yeah.
That does come, and they're wonderful. So they will come and deliver to the front desk. The concierge records those medications that come in. And sorry if you can't see me. The concierge does record the medications that come from an outside pharmacy.
Can hear.
Yeah.
Can't hear it. They're all closed.
Come on.
Hi. I'm a little shorter than Ryan is. So Fowler's Pharmacy will deliver medications to the front desk at the Commons. The concierge will record the receipt of those medications. If you do get medications from that pharmacy, that person will call you and let you know that something has been delivered, and you can come pick that up. If you have difficulty coming to the front desk to pick up your medication, just let the concierge know when you get that call, and we'll have security deliver it for you.
And there is a signature required for that, so we make sure that medication is handled appropriately. But again, if you couldn't hear me a moment ago, packages are delivered Monday through Friday to apartment doors at 3 o'clock or between 3 and 4. Darlene at the Village Center desk is usually the one who does that. If someone is filling in for her for the day, they will also do that for you. And if you do get a notification before then and you want to come get your package, you're more than welcome to come see if we have it. But as Ryan mentioned, sometimes, especially with Amazon, we have found packages at the loading dock door down at the end of one of the apartment building doors. Amazon is a huge company and there are a lot of drivers and a lot of turnover with staff. So we don't always have the same person coming to deliver. So there's no way for us to tell you, or to tell the driver, I'm sorry, you need to come to this door all the time. It just doesn't happen. We've had a lot of issues with that. So if you are in an apartment, it's also very helpful if you can put 6 Hoke Smith Boulevard on your Amazon account. It's more assuredly going to get delivered to the Commons desk than just dropping it anywhere at Rolling Green. Yes, ma'am.
Have you put this information in the highlights?
Absolutely. We'll be glad to do that. Any other questions about deliveries? I know Ryan wants to keep moving on.
Yeah.
Yes, Judy.
I couldn't hear. Can you explain the weekends?
Oh, yes, ma'am. So the weekend deliveries, we really don't have a staff member here. Staffing is a little shorter staffed on the weekends, so we don't have someone here that can regularly deliver packages to the apartments. If someone is here, we are happy to get packages delivered to you. But you're more than welcome if you get a notification. You can certainly come up and ask the concierge and we'll see if we can find it for you.
What are the hours for the concierge on the weekend?
Yes, weekends, Saturday, Sunday, and on holidays, the concierge is here from 9 to 4 at the Commons only. Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. So, keep moving along. The fountain. Skip can back me up on this, but the last information I know, we're grateful that the fountain has been repaired. However, it's not back 100% to where it's going to be. Skip indicated there's a part when the gentleman went in, I guess, on a boat to go out and fix it, dropped this part that is supposed to help spray the highest amount. So right now it's coming out this way, but there's a part that's supposed to go in the middle that also goes up even more. The gentleman dropped that part, is that correct, Skip? He's smiling.
Yeah, the center nozzle, the one that has the high spray in the center, he dropped it when he was taking it apart to clean it out. So they had to order another one.
So it's on order. The fountain is working again. It will go back to where it was, spraying a lot higher. We did have to shut it down because of algae. I think folks have probably seen that if you are around town at other different ponds. It's been really, really bad this year. We had to turn it off so it wasn't broken, but when we have treated the water, we've had to do it a couple different times. So the ideal is not to have it down, but to have it working all the time and function the correct way, and we'll continue to monitor the algae in hopes that we don't have to shut it down again. But the gentleman with the algae recommended we not use that for a period of time while it was being treated, so that's why we stopped using it for a little while. Anything else on that, Skip? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
When we treat this lakes, ponds, water, when we treat one, do we treat them all?
Skip, when we treat one, do we treat them all?
No, we only treat the upper pond because the other 2 ponds are much more silt oriented from the runoff and all, and that discoloration, we don't get the algae buildup because the sunlight doesn't penetrate those. But the upper pond that's clearer water allows the light, and that's why we have the algae problem in that one.
Thank you. I want to keep moving along so I can get to some questions. The overnight trips, I didn't tell Amy, but we kept it on here. We are continuing to evaluate and make sure that we provide a good opportunity for the overnight trips, but we've had experiences where folks have backed out at the last minute and the cost and everything. So if you do have some ideas, Amy is open to hearing them. We still haven't come up with a solution yet, but that is still something we want to offer. We're just going to maybe make changes in how we do it. So please see Amy if you have any ideas that could help us to ensure that when we have a trip that we get the most people that we can and that folks have a good time and we don't have things change right at the last minute and completely change the experience for the team and also for the residents. So that was all about overnight trips. Keep moving along. What questions can I answer for you all?
Come on now, don't let him off that easy.
Before maybe a question, I want to talk briefly the expansion, the potential expansion. I want to make sure folks know that there's nothing is definite yet, but we are excited to see the demand. Like Ruth had said, 80 plus people are interested in moving here. We are continuing working with the board of directors to go through a phased approach with having multiple different no-go decisions. So nothing final has been decided, but we're continuing to look at the market, look at what our needs are, and try to figure out what that might look like. We're still looking at years down the road, but when we see that the number of people that want to come here and some of the work that we need to continue to do, I think the primary reason for us to continue to grow, which I mentioned yesterday, is addressing our assisted living setting. Cedars Assisted Living has not really been upgraded since it was built in the 1980s. And for us to be able to redo and rethink that space, we need the new revenues to come in from folks on the independent living side, like we did with the Commons, a similar scenario, that new residents come here that provide us with the capital to redo and rethink Cedars. We're looking at, with Cedars being the focal point, how many apartments do we need? We know that people from independent living are leaving campus to get assisted living because we have studio apartments there, and they're not attractive to what folks today would like to see. We do have good demand there, and we do have folks that are living there, but we feel it can be better, and that's the primary point for us looking at growing again. But there is no formal decision to say yes. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we are continuing to research it and to be methodical in figuring out what that might look like for us. Question?
The lights in the parking lot for the F building have been out for a couple months. And I was wondering if there's a resolution coming for that.
I think that, so the question was, the lights in the F building parking lot have been out for an extended period of time. Do we have a resolution or what's going on there? So, Skip?
If we have an underground problem, so they had to put a new line under the road, and so that's why if you look at that light pole on the end, you see some cable curled up, and that's when they were boring that. So the underground crew, unfortunately, there's a overhead crew that does the lights. There is a disconnect crew that has a problem trying to put connection, and then there's an underground crew that does the underground. Of course, there's weeks in between each one of those, and they're all different crews. But yes, they are actively working on that.
They is Duke?
Duke.
Power?
Generally, you'll see Pike Electric because they do a lot of the underground work for Duke. There was a question.
Do we know when they're coming back? Do we have any idea?
No, that's.
So we need to follow up on that and continue to try to encourage them to come out.
That's like the checks in the mail kind of thing.
Yeah.
Somebody had a question back here.
Question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Skip. Thank you. Hi, I'm Susie Ware. I live on Millstead in the independent patio homes. When you're talking about expansion, are you talking mainly, right now it sounds like the assisted living facility. Is that probably most of what's going to be enlarged, or are you talking about additional independent living apartments and houses?
It would be both. So we would, the primary reason to grow, and when we completed this expansion, we wanted to figure out what's the next area that we need to improve. Through quite a bit of discussion, internal, and doing some study, we landed on the fact that assisted living, particularly Cedars Assisted Living, needs to be addressed. To be able to do that, we need to bring in independent living residents and those to help us offset the cost. We don't have the money in the bank to be able to construct a brand new assisted living. we cannot go and ask for those folks to pay significantly more for us to finance a new setting. So it's a combination of both independent housing and to make assisted living work. And we may be adding a few, but we're not going to, I don't believe right now we're looking at doubling it or tripling it. But right now we have 28 apartments. We don't know if it's going to be 38 or 48, but we feel that we need to add slightly. But we definitely need to bring up that setting to what the market demands now. If you go out to the greater community, you see a lot of independent, assisted memory care settings that we cannot compete with right now. So, hope that answers the question. Next question. Skip's over here. Skip after there, come over here.
Hi, Georgianne Feldman. I'm in one of the cottages. And my question is, we're considering all this expansion. I'm a little concerned about the dining room, the pool, and the exercise facilities. And the buses. Yeah, the buses. Whether that's going to be addressed and how.
So let me make sure you asked about the dining room, the pool, and the exercise. And buses, yes. I can tell you, I was talking with Amy a little bit ago, and she's been hard to track down. We know that we need to continue to look at transportation options and different transportation options. As far as a bus, as far as other items, we've discussed about maybe a trolley of some sorts. We're trying to figure out what that, if that's possible, what transportation would look like. When we do continue to grow, we would become more lateral, more spread out. So my understanding is that the dining room that's currently constructed does have capacity to add more folks. The hope too is that we didn't have to create another kitchen, because as you're aware, it's difficult to find quality staff. So we do believe that the current dining room and the extra space that we have can accommodate. So that's about the dining room. As far as the pool and the fitness area, we know, and I've picked up on the fact that that's the furthest from you all. It's not in the best setting, but I believe, my understanding, I wasn't here, Skip was, it was added a little bit later on in the project, and they were able to find a space for it. If we could do it differently, it'd be better to be in the center of where our independent living folks are. It is used by our therapy team, so it's used by folks in the nursing home, some, but primarily it's independent living folks. We do hope with another round of growth that we could look at that. I don't believe it's going to be in this round, but there's been some other discussions moving forward about another round of growth that would include looking differently at the wellness space, looking at a different type of a pool potentially, but that is in the distance. And that's all I can tell you for right now. But we do know that that's also another area to address and to change in the future. Next question?
The architectural committee that's coming, I wish they could be here for several days and set up sessions with each area to discuss what is needed here, because I think people living here know what we need, and I think it's very important that the architectural committee talk with the local residents to make plans, to incorporate into their plans things that we need. Totally agree with the last, with the speaker, that we need more things that come in with new people. Thank you.
And I do agree. The architectural team, we have hired that's helped us to start to look at the plans is by the name of SFCS. S is in Sam, F is in Frank, C is in Charlie, S is in Sam. They're based out of Virginia, but they also have an office in Charlotte. And they have been on the grounds. They've been working with Skip. They've held meetings with myself and with Ruth. I think, to understand where we're at. They're also working across the country. As I'm getting more involved in the process, I think that there should be an opportunity. I don't know how that looks as we continue to move forward, to speak to the current residents and finding a balance between current residents and new residents that what folks are looking for. is important with any type of growth that we have. We want to make sure that folks here benefit and folks in the future are also looking for those type of facilities and those type of amenities. Since we're talking about a pool and the and wellness, one other element of the next phase we're trying to work in is some of the outdoor amenities that we've been looking at. So trying to leverage some of the outdoor spaces that we have. We're not going to be able to do all of them, but we did bring a landscape architect in a number of years ago to help us figure out what would fit where across our campus. So we're hopeful that that's going to be an element and some things we can do before we get to that growth to create those outdoor amenities that you all can benefit from today and that future residents would want too. So we're hopeful we can incorporate a couple of those items as well in the next round of growth. Next question.
Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
Forgot to ask, the Pathfinders, do they have a deposit down?
Yes. I do believe, yes, they have a deposit down.
Okay. The only other question I had was parking, covered parking. Has that ever been discussed as a revenue stream?
Covered parking. That's a good question. Some of our phase 2, this next phase we're looking at may, and I want to preface this, may include some underground parking. Not necessarily, covered like the airport, but underground parking. There is discussion about having some spaces. If we were to build an apartment using the ground level for parking, is a discussion point. Again, no final plans have been made, but that has been an incorporated feature that we've been talking about. But we're not to the point yet to say, yes, we're going to do it. But it is a part of some of the discussion. Next question. Yes?
Yes, the issue of getting input from people who live here in terms of future improvements and facilities and so on seem to be something that hasn't really been quite put in place yet. And it would seem that the homeowners associations that are in independent living apartments and so on would be an effective mechanism or organizational setup that's already in place that might be considered as a way to get involvement on this issue.
I think that's a good point. I do want to, as I'm kind of thinking through it and some of my experience from before, I do believe there was some survey that was done prior. Not all folks maybe can remember some of the surveys. I know at times people get tired by surveys, but I do believe that throughout some points of growth we have had resident surveys, asked for written feedback. I would also encourage you, if you have some of that specific feedback, you can speak to Ruth and speak to myself and speak to Skip, the department head folks, as another way of providing influence and giving that feedback. I just don't know about a formal, Q&A with them. I will ask them. We have a call with them about once a month that I'm a part of as we continue to move forward. And we're still kind of in those thinking, planning, looking stages, and still not decided yet if we will actually do it or not. Ultimately, that will be a board level decision when we get to that place. We're at 303, 304, and maybe look at one other question. And I want to be mindful of time, and I can make myself available afterwards. Extremely grateful for folks here today. Yes, sir.
I'd like to hear your comments on the staffing issues or non-issues that we did have in the past, and specifically about housekeeping, because we live in a patio home and we miss the housekeeping service.
Yeah. So the question around staffing, was it staffing in general or just in the dining room, did you say? Food?
In general.
In general. And then around housekeeping in the patio homes, we've seen an uptick, which has been good, I feel, since January with hiring. So from January of 2023 to now, we have seen our applications go up. We've also been working internally with our management team on a training from the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM, and we're working on helping equip our managers with the tools to be more successful managers. The reasons why turnover happens often is from your boss, and if we can have better bosses, we can maybe have not as many openings to create. So we're looking at the front door with applications and the back door with people leaving. So it has gotten better from January till now. We still have a ways to go. I think we've talked a little bit about it before. When we look to hire people at Rolling Green Village, we have different types of requirements than another organization has. People that will work here have to pass a background check. So if you work at a restaurant, that's not always necessarily the case. You have to pass a drug screen, and you have to pass a physical. So in some cases, the pool of people that we can hire goes from here to here because of those 3 variables. But we have seen successes. We are continuing to evaluate our compensation and our benefits and making sure that we're being competitive. And we're also working on closing the back door. We've seen improvements. Within housekeeping, I don't think that we're that far off. I thought we were starting to offer some housekeeping to some folks, but not completely ramp it up all the way. But that is definitely our intention, to get back to those services that we provided pre-COVID. We've made a lot of strides within food and beverage too, opening back up the dining room, to better hours. So continuing to focus on that. I think the staffing question could be asked every single month because it's just not going away. And we're really trying to focus on being that right employer and being a place that people want to come and want to stay at. And we've got some of those folks that have stayed for quite a while. Go ahead, Skip.
Ryan, is there any way that they can take some of the weight off of the doors going into the restrooms, especially in the new buildings? Whether you're in a motorized wheelchair, a scooter, a rollator, it is difficult to open those doors and get your rollator or other through the door.
I'm not aware that we can change the weighting. Skip, what are your thoughts before I might have one thought? What do you think? How can I best answer that question, Skip?
This is, for whatever reason, the first time I've heard of that. So I think the first thing we need to do, Ryan, is let's take a look at it, see what we can find. But there are code regulations that we've got to deal with that the doors have to latch and things like that. So we recognize it is a challenge, but I wasn't aware that it was everything as big of a challenge as it is. But let us look at it and see what we can do, and we can report back to you and let you know what we find.
In some cases, we put door openers on. They are a little bit expensive. Is it $4,000?
Yeah, it runs anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000, depending on how we have to do it.
We're trying to put those in those right places. It's not, that's a lot of money, so we're trying to be smart about where we have them and making sure. But you're right, accessibility and the doors, making sure you can get in and out of them without causing a hazard is important. So.
How quickly you can get in is important.
Yeah. We should, lock the door so we don't let you leave. Well, thank you so much. I know I'm extremely grateful, to be here, the first opportunity to visit with you all. I'm learning a lot. I'm understanding a lot. I really appreciate you being in attendance today. I'll continue to look forward to these meetings. I did want to share one thing before I left. Bob's thing was jokes, but I have a pretty neat story I wanted to share, and I'm going to try to incorporate in some ways. I think a lot of times on the independent living side, folks, from what I've heard, and I don't want to label, but from what I've heard is people are they don't want to go on the other side of the double doors. And by the double doors, people are thinking of a healthcare center. We have 2 brown double doors. I want you to be aware of today, we have a gentleman who came into the health center a couple of months ago and came from outside and had lived in the Greenville area for a while. We felt the best place for him was going to be the nursing home. That's not an easy decision. We don't take that lightly. When he moved in, we've been able to provide the right support, been able to provide therapy to him, and he's worked really hard. Today he moved over to a Cedars Assisted Living. So when folks think that we're only focused on moving people into the nursing home, that people think nursing home are places that people only go to pass away, Well, that's not true, and this gentleman is an example of that today. So it's pretty special. At times I want to share some different stories. There's another one I'd like to share in the future, but we're not there yet. But just amazing, and just so you folks know that we do look for those opportunities. When somebody moves there, are they in the right setting? How can we help them achieve those goals when it comes to function and quality of life? So, pretty special thing. So I'll leave you all with that. Thank you all for your time. Look forward to the next.